Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to Drums and Drams. My name's Cameron, and today we've got another Scotch Sunday whiskey review. In today's episode, I'm going to take a look at the brand new Bruichladdich 18-year single malt Scotch. This is coming in right around $180 US, so we're basically paying $10 per year of age for this product. Now, that's not a bad value proposition when you think about some older expressions, 25-year, 30-year products. If you were paying $10 per year of age, that would be fantastic. But when you look at an 18-year Scotch and you kind of look around the market, even with the recent price increases over the last 3 or 4 years, where we see Glenmorangie, Glenfiddich, Glenlivet, all of these kind of mainstay brands increasing by, $10 to $40 for their 18-year products. Even so, the max price for some of those is $130, $140. So $180 for this Bruichladdich 18. It doesn't feel great right away. Now, I do think we need to keep in mind, and I need to tell myself this as well when I think about this price, that they're bottling this at 50% ABV, which is completely unusual in today's market of neutered 40 to 43% ABV 18-year products, non-chill filtered, no added color. So they're doing all of the things that we love. And of course, if you get on their website, or if you just know anything about Bruichladdich, you know how transparent the process is through their production methods. So with that said, even though that price is $180 US, I don't think it's the worst thing in the world, but it definitely doesn't feel great. I will talk about that obviously at the end of this video once I get through tasting this and kind of weigh in on my thoughts when we're looking at the quality of the pour to the price. Now, I also do have the Bruichladdich Classic Lottie here. Just as a point of comparison, we will get into this as well in this review, but I think it's time now to get onto it. So what I have here in the Bennuaine glass is the Bruichladdich 18. I do want to say thank you very quickly to a very generous Patreon member, Adam B., for sending me this sample. This is the only way I'm able to try this brand new product, so thank you, Adam, for your generosity, not only with this sample, but with everything else that you've been sending, man. Very, very much appreciated. And one last thing before I nose this Bruichladdich, I just want to call it the casking. This is primarily ex-bourbon casks, and I believe it said there's a little bit of Sauterne and port cask finishing or maturation in the blend as well. With that said, let's get it on the nose now and see what we get. All right, so first impression is that this is a fairly straightforward and clean example of an 18-year Scotch, and I think a lot of that comes from the primary usage of ex-bourbon casks in this blend. Right away, the first note that I'm picking up on is a humongous buttercream note. And this is something that I talk a lot about when it comes to 6 to 8 year MGP. We're talking American whiskey now, right? MGP bourbons, that 36% rye mash bill from MGP between 6 and 8 years old. I always get this huge buttercream note. So, I mean, this is a total speculation, but it would not surprise me if they used ex-MGP bourbon casks for the maturation of this product, because it is just such a strong buttercream note up front. But again, first impression, speculations aside, is that this is just down the middle, clean, but the bourbon casks come through loud and clear. This is definitely not something you smell and think, wow, complex wine notes, big fruity punch. There's not really a lot of that. And also the color of this whiskey tells that story too. It's not colored at all. And it's coming through as just kind of a lighter, it's got a little gold in it, but kind of like a straw or hay type color. So anyways, back to the nose now. Yeah, so along with that kind of buttercream note, you do get some baked goods here, like a fresh croissant, a little bit of this toasty element. Again, that's got to be coming from the ex-bourbon casks. I will say there is that traditional kind of coastal influence to this one. It smells like sand, and that smell when you're on the beach, that the salt water, the salinity that's hitting you, the ocean spray, if you want to call it that. But also there's like a sandiness to this. And I know that sounds weird to be specific about the sand. I don't know why that's what comes to mind, but it's there. But I don't want to discount the fact that there is a little fruit influence here. And I think if I had to place that with any of the casks, I guess I would place it with the port casks, because there is kind of a strawberry jam element. It's very light, very in the background. I guess I could continue diving into this. There is a little citrus element. I don't know if it's lemon or lime, but something kind of citrusy and bright. A good amount of a white pepper, bourbon cask, oak spice as well. I could nerd out about this further on the nose, but I think the general idea for me is that this is not an overly complex whiskey on the nose. The 50% ABV is welcome. It delivers this clean profile, and I like that about it. And I think it's time to get it on the palate now. Cheers. All right, the palate. Up front, that first punch is awesome. Yes. Wow. So I'm going to try to talk through this so that there's not a lot of silence in the video, but the palate up front, great spice profile. I've got to say the 50% ABV makes the difference on this Scotch. I feel like if you brought this down to 46 or 43, which in this video, I'm not going to add water to this. Some people have asked me to do that on Scotch Sundays. Let me know in the comments if you think that's something that I should get into on these videos. But for today, we're not doing it. We're going to drink it as is. The 50% ABV is perfect. It's a perfect way to deliver this on the palate. Now, I'm into the finish now. We will get into some of the tasting notes more specifically. But this first sip for me is just to kind of figure out the overall idea of the whiskey on the palate. Now that we're into the finish, there is some sour, kind of sour, bitter contrast in the whiskey. And I do appreciate that because on the nose, it doesn't really smell like you're going to get that. It is so down the middle, clean bourbon cask influence that some sourness, sour fruits specifically, kind of like a little bit of like that overripe tropical fruit kind of note. That's what's sitting in the finish, as well as like some great sugary sweetness. It's almost like you just poured sugar on top of like some really ripe tropical fruits. That's what I'm getting in the finish. So I do appreciate that, the variety of the profile on the palate. But first sip, super impressive. The nose, it's fine. Let's go back to the nose very quickly. Yeah, I think it's just, it's really more of the same. In fact, I don't know, the second nosing here after this first sip from me, it gets a little more ethanol forward. There's something about it that's changing. It's getting a little funkier, actually. I do appreciate that. Maybe a little more oak influence is starting to come out for me now that I've acclimated to the spice and kind of the intensity of the pour. But again, I think the nose for me is just kind of simple. I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing because this is not full of X wine casks, Madeira sherry. We're not in that kind of an 18-year Scotch territory. We're really, we can expect what this is going to be based on the casking, and I think it's fulfilling what that is, what that expectation is. So back to the palate now. I love the palate on this. I really do. It's like lime salt up front. Yeah, a little bit of this lime salt note, that coastal influence, this citrus peel lime thing that I talked about on the nose earlier. It's kind of faint. It's not a big component of this. There's actually something kind of cheesy about it in the mid palate. This kind of sharp cheddar cheese note that I'm getting. And it's like bouncing between sweet buttercream, toasty vanilla bourbon notes and then sharp cheddar cheese. That's kind of the mid palate. It's this dance that's going back and forth from savory, salty, cheesy to, sweet and toasty. And then again, as we get into this finish, that's kind of where those sweet tropical fruits, but with that sour component hanging around, a little tannic in the finish. So overall, I think this is a great pour. $180 for me. I could complain about it all day. But here's the thing. What makes this whiskey, in my opinion, is the proof. It's the fact that it's bottled at 50% and you get to experience the flavors in such a big way. And I think if you bottled this, if you wanted it cheaper, then you're probably going to be suffering from a lower proofed whiskey, right? So you want a $140 version of this? Well, here it is at 46%. I don't think it's the same whiskey at 46%. In my mind, right? I could water this down now. I could walk out of the room, grab some water, bring it back in and do that. But just kind of spitballing right now, I would say that given the price, but given the palate, I'm okay. I'm okay with the price given the palate. That's what I should say. The nose is the least exciting part of this whiskey for me. I tasted it recently on a live stream. Kind of the same thing. I was like, well, I'm confused by the nose. I drank it. I liked it. And that kind of dichotomy between the two, right? That relationship confused me a little bit. Well, here it is again for me. I feel like I can confidently say palate great, finish great, nose, eh. So with that said, let's do a quick comparison here. We've got the classic Lottie. And, you know, this is a great entry-level pour. It does have kind of an ethanol-forward profile. It's certainly younger than this 18-year. And on the nose, it comes off a little bit like Sour Patch Kids, if you've ever had those. Yeah, some sort of like sour, you know, gummy worm or some kind of candy like that. And I guess if you're unfamiliar with that kind of a profile, I would say that it's a lot of these like rich, sweet, tart, candied fruits, but also fruit peels, right? It's got a little of this young bitterness to it, like apple skins, pear skins, this kind of thing. All the while, this sugary confectionery, you know, candy shop sweetness on there as well. But again, a big dose of ethanol on the nose of this one. So on the palate now. Yeah, and the palate, kind of grassy up front. A little bit of like a seaweed, grassy kind of note. Very, very sweet in the mid palate. And as we roll into the finish now, kind of a generic oak spice note that hangs around in the finish. And now bouncing back into those kind of sweet tart or Sour Patch Kid kind of notes. So, look, I think this 18-year, if you like the classic Lottie, I think it's a nice upgrade. It's a little confusing for me. Like the profiles are definitely related, but it is just it's a little confusing for me that the 18-year is so bourbon forward. I mean, it would be cool to see what an 18-year Bruichladdich would be like with a little bit more of a wine cask influence. But for what it is, I think it drinks fantastically. I would pay the $180. If it creeps up over that, I have to start to really think about what I'm spending on this product. I can't wait to taste the Port Charlotte 18 that is on the way right now. And I would love to hear from all of you in the comment section what you think if you've had the chance to try this Bruichladdich 18. I know it's brand new at the time that I'm recording this video. I've got to say thank you to Adam again. This is a great tasting, a great product. Just the nose a little bit. I'll play with it with some water off camera and see what we get. But that's going to do it. Thank you guys. Cheers. And I'll see you next time here on Drums and Drams.